Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Is there another pair of cartels? Someone can play. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, oh, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Gora Haribol. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Viradhe. Jaya Radha Damodar, Radha Damodar, Shri Radhe. Go Premanandi. I've been debating whether we should plunge into 10th Canto, Chapter 1, Verse 1, or continue with the appetizers, especially because one verse in the appetizers, the last verses of the 24th chapter of the 9th Canto, can sound quite current eventsy, shall we say. Now we want to tune into the nectar, but the nectar has various permutations and mixtures of pure bhakti. When Srila Prabhupada would discuss glaring, pungent examples that he would use to describe material existence, he said this is also kirtan, and that unless devotees have those kind of talks and hear those kind of talks about the gross realities of material existence, he said they'll be weak and go away. And he would give some very pungent examples, some that I can't repeat, about what kind of society we live in. So, as Sanatana Goswami says, every syllable of Srimad Bhagwatam is saturated with Krishna Prem. That will take some realization to experience the full impact of that. Especially because in the 9th canto, in the beginning of chapter 24, the last chapter, there's a whole list of dynasties. This one begat that one married that one, these are the offspring. There are other places in the Bhagavatam like that. And so you may wonder, what's the point? And then, in other places, other cantos of the Bhagavatam, when there's a long list of dynasties, you want to quickly pass over that. Then you get to the last verse of the chapter, which says, anyone who recites these names advances in spiritual life. Oops. Let's go back to the beginning. So, what shall we do? I'll just follow along in the next verses from yesterday, so we can just blame Shukadev Goswami. So yesterday we were discussing how material existence is miserable, but it has a purpose. And the purpose is not that we develop comfort and security. The purpose is that we become educated and put an end to our involvement with material existence. So, the last verse we discussed, the Supreme Personality of God acts through his material energy in the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, just to deliver the living entity by his compassion and stop the living entity's birth, death, and duration of materialistic life. Thus, he enables the living being to return home back to Godhead. So we were discussing, just a short recap. This is verse, you want to follow along, it's verse 58 of the 24th chapter of the 9th canto. And we discussed the point, raised in the purport, that materialistic persons sometimes ask, why has God created the material world for the suffering of the living entities? And Prabhupada's response is, the material creation is certainly meant for the suffering of the conditioned souls. So, straight away we're lovingly pushed up against the wall. Yes, there is suffering, certainly, and it's meant to be that. But there's also side by side meant to be education. And there should be a therapeutic process for becoming cured of the material disease, of material attachment. Side by side with opportunities for attempting material satisfaction. So it's all going on at once. So we were discussing how in that manner you can say that the material world is created by the conditioned souls. By their desires, they create the material world. In other words, Krishna reciprocates by giving them a playground, a dreamy, imaginary playground to give them a chance to fulfill their desires. And we discussed how we have two limitations riding on our back that interfere with all our activities, our hopes, our dreams, our goals, our pursuits. What are those two limitations? Who remembers one of them? We are of limited knowledge. Separate from Krishna, we don't have what it takes to do anything properly. We get bewildered so easily, separated from Krishna, because our knowledge is limited. But connected to Krishna, then our knowledge becomes full. But detached from Krishna, our limitation of knowledge comes to the fore and dominates all our activities. And a symptom of limited knowledge is the pursuit of material fulfillment. So these are very weighty points. But there's another limitation. Who remembers? Yes, Devaki Preeti.
Limited pleasure?
Our pleasure capacity, our pleasure acquiring capacity is limited. It doesn't feel like that, does it? It feels like, I want this, I want that. This shall be mine, that shall be mine. The senses are demanding. Let us free, cut us loose, we'll bring you satisfaction. So our desires seem without limitation. But actually our actual pleasure-getting potency is limited. We can't get all that we want. We don't have that composition. We don't have that makeup to get all that we want. But what about Krishna? Krishna's pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti, is unlimited. This is one of the characteristics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Where was the last time I was speaking about this? Oh, I can't remember. But one of the defining characteristics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that he has unlimited desires. Now, our desires feel like they're unlimited, don't they? But I think I've done this exercise before with you. Where was I? It's traveling life. I can't remember where you were when you said something. I've asked the audience, how many desires can you count? Have I done that with you all? You remember, was it here? You think so? Does anyone remember for sure? All right, we'll start with Madhupan Leela. Name one desire.
Good health.
Good health. Okay, number one. Parameshwari, another desire.
Good husband.
Good husband. Okay, we're up to two. Anyone else? Number three.
Money.
Money. Okay. Number four.
Good friends.
Good friends. Okay. We're just up to four, you know. Number five.
Big family.
Big family. Okay.
Respect.
Number 6, respect, social acclaim. We're still, huh?
I tend to jump up.
You're one of those Hare Krishna bliss boys. The Gurukulas used to call them Kijai bliss boys. Come on, let's. We're up to 6, right?
Good weather.
Better you say a nice environment. Still, you're up to 7.
Security.
Huh?
Security.
Well, you got to be more specific than that.
Job security.
Okay, job security. But look how you're struggling to just to name just a few desires. And Krishna has unlimited desires. So this is a good way of understanding how Krishna's Supreme Personality got it. He has unlimited desires. We struggle to get up to 10. All right, I can throw a few in. Number 8, world peace. But Krishna has unlimited desires. But not only that, as Kaviraj Goswami points out in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna has the unlimited, infinite ability to fulfill every one of his unlimited desires. Now, what is your ability to fulfill one of your desires? It's pathetic. We undergo such adversity, we struggle, we strain, just to fulfill the few little itsy-bitsy desires we have. Small-time desires, really. Selfish. Sometimes we get a bit charitable. World peace, alleviate world poverty. Still, it's hard getting past 10. So how can you conceive of Krishna with his unlimited desires and the characteristic he has called Swarajya Lakshmi? Any Chaitanya Charitamrita readers who remember what is Swarajya Lakshmi? Oh, okay, Dina Palika, give a go.
The unlimited ability to fulfill all of his unlimited desires.
Very good. Independently. Krishna has the independent, unlimited ability to fulfill every one of his unlimited desires. That is Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna's pleasure-seeking capacity is unlimited, and his knowledge is unlimited. So how could we ever say that we are equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? You have to be mad. So our disease is that we want to enjoy independently. We want to enjoy without Krishna. That takes some thought. I want to enjoy without Krishna. How could that be? I think I'm a nice person, trying to make my way through this world, making as few mistakes as possible. How could it be that I want to enjoy independently from Krishna? So we also discussed yesterday, there's a great struggle for existence because the living entity, conditioned by material nature, is under nature's full control. Do you feel like you're under nature's full control? Can't be that bad, can it? I mean, you all feel like you have your options, don't you? You have room for creativity. But it's like someone in prison who's given the choice. Would you like this brand of toothpaste or that brand of toothpaste? Of course, in prison, you don't even get that choice. But let's say you did. You're in prison and, wow, I get to choose between brands of toothpaste. People will think you're crazy. You're in prison. Get out of prison and experience life. So that's what Krishna is telling you in Bhagavad Gita. Get out of material existence and experience real life. And what do we say? Oh, I have my options. I have choices. So we discussed, because of his limited knowledge, the living entity thinks he is enjoying in this material world. Now that takes some consideration. You mean I'm concocting that that there's enjoyment in this world that I'm enjoying. It's a mental concoction. That takes a lot of due diligence to put yourself under the microscope and examine yourself. It takes a lot of guts. Actually, we're under the full control of material nature, but we still think ourselves independent. Ahankara vimudatma kataham iti manyate. So, in this way, the conditioned soul undergoes a great struggle for existence in this material world. And therefore, here comes Janmashtami, and therefore the Lord, out of compassion, appears in this world and instructs. So we might say, all we want to do is be happy. But do we understand unadulterated happiness is not possible in material existence? What always happens when you try to be happy in the material sense? You simultaneously create distress, because that's the way the material world is structured. As soon as you try for happiness, even in the plan-making stage, Prahlad Maharaj says this, just making plans for material happiness, that's where the anxiety and distress begins. So the way the game is structured, the way material existence is structured, is that as soon as you try to make material progress, you're simultaneously creating impediments. If you can see this, you save yourself so much trouble. We long for unadulterated happiness, pure happiness. Can't get it in this world. In material existence, happiness is always contaminated by distress. Who knows the example of the sweet rice mixed with sand? You don't know that one.
I don't.
Have you had sweet rice yet?
Maybe.
It's like milk with rice in it.
Yeah,
Where have you had it?
probably some prasad.
I hope it's prasad.
A few days ago it was here. We had it here.
Wow. Milk from the cows?
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So suppose you were all primed to drink a cup of sweet rice. The anticipation we discussed yesterday. How so much of what we call material fulfillment and pleasure is all about anticipation. And we compared that to its pure origin in the spiritual world, purva raga, which is the state of anticipating a meeting with Krishna. And that state of purva raga is so much cherished by the Vaishnavacharyas. And that purva raga springs into action by what incidents? Who remembers? Hearing about Krishna. What else?
Seeing Krishna from a distance.
Seeing Krishna from a distance.
Dreaming about Krishna.
Dreaming about Krishna. Sometimes before there's a meeting with Krishna, there's a dream of Krishna. So that purva raga, purva means prior, before meeting, is relished more than meeting, sambhoga. In fact, purva raga can be understood as one of the phases of vipralambha, love and separation. So we were discussing yesterday how material existence is in the mind. It's lived in the mind. Material pleasure is something created by the mind. And it's 90% anticipation. As soon as you make a plan for material fulfillment, Prahlad Maharaj says, that's where the distress begins. Not simply in the execution stage, but in the plan-making stage. So from the very incipient stage of the idea, the plan, the notion, you're setting off distress. You're creating distress. Because that's the way this world is structured. And how many lifetimes is it going to take for us to realize that? As soon as you take a step toward material progress, you're also creating impediments simultaneously. The game is rigged. But we can't get that out of our head. I want progress, material progress. Spiritual progress, that's another thing. But I want material progress. You can get the illusion that you're making material progress, but you won't see that simultaneously you're creating obstacles. Because material happiness is always contaminated by material distress. Can't have one without the other, like two sides of a coin, duality. Therefore, Krishna says in the Gita, Dvandva mohena bharata. Become free from these dualities of illusion. So bhakti is about rising beyond happiness and distress. This is worth a lifetime of devotional service. Trying to become free of material happiness and material distress. Who would ever think to become free of material happiness? But certainly we want to become free of material distress. But the material distress comes as a result of a quest for material happiness. Every conditioned soul is struggling, but human life provides the best chance for him to understand his position. The soul should be educated. This is the purpose of the creation. In the material world, the conditioned soul is given a chance to satisfy his senses, but at the same time, he is informed by Vedic knowledge that this material world is not his actual place for happiness. Every human being, therefore, should what? Should take advantage of this creation by understanding Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, and in this way return home back to Godhead. So what about the Lord's mercy? We got to that at the very end yesterday. I find that these points are so deep, although Prabhupada has phrased them so starkly and simply. They're so deep, it requires constant contemplation, at least for me. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that when the Lord as Mahavishnu glances over the material creation, that is mercy, because that glance is creating opportunities for the conditioned souls to fulfill their desires, try to fulfill their desires while being educated from Vedic knowledge. So when Mahavishnu glances over the material energy, that is mercy. He's in effect saying, here's your chance, here's your opportunity. So Vishwanath says, the Lord's mercy consists of glancing over Maya, and he's thinking, let the jivas get their material enjoyment. So you ask, but how can this be mercy? Isn't it so that the jivas, by enjoying material objects and undergoing creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe, simply experience suffering? But in this process of undergoing material existence, the jivas become detached from the world and its enjoyment by bhakti. That opportunity is always given. So bhakti means jnana and vairagya. Bhakti is a train that runs on those two tracks. Detachment from material nature and attachment to Krishna. knowledge of Krishna. Understanding Krishna produces attachment. So therefore, Vishwanath concludes, the cause of the creation of this world is mercy to the jivas. So now we get to the verse I was wondering what to do about. Akshohaninam patibir asarai nipa lanchanai bhuva akram yamanaya abharaya kritod yama. Ready? Although the demons who take possession of the government are dressed like men of government, they do not know the duty of the government. Consequently, by the arrangement of God, such demons who possess great military strength fight with one another, and thus the great burden of demons on the surface of the earth is reduced. The demons increase their military power by the will of the Supreme, so that their numbers will be diminished and the devotees will have a chance to advance in Krishna consciousness. So in the word for words, Srila Prabhupada gives his enhanced word meanings. Sometimes academics protest this. It's not 100% literal, but he's turbocharging. Especially his purports. He says, anyone can translate. He told us that at the BBT. He said, actually, anyone can translate. But my purports are my devotional ecstasies. So sometimes the ecstasies creep out even in the word for words. So, Akshohaninam, of kings possessing great military power. Patibi, by such kings or government. Asurai, actually demons, because they do not need such military power, but create it unnecessarily. Nirpalanchanai, who are actually unfit to be kings, although they have somehow taken possession of the government. Bhuva, on the surface of the earth. Akramyamanaya, aiming at attacking one another. Abharaya, paving the way for diminishing the number of demons on the surface of the earth. Krita Udyama, enthusiastic. They spend all of the revenue of the state to increase military power. Quite stark and to the point. So we were discussing a few days ago, who remembers, how much in 1 year, in 2024, how much the 9 nuclear powers spent on nuclear weapons, just in 1 year. 100 billion. That in 5 years, that is a 60% increase. And meanwhile, the poor, foolish people are thinking there's peace. And of that 100 billion, who spends more than the lion's share? The land of the free and home of the brave, at 57 billion, more than all the other countries' nuclear powers combined. Now, this is a worldwide problem. It's not just an American problem. It just happens to be that America is great in this way. How many active duty soldiers are throughout the world and in how many countries? At least on active duty, 170,000. In how many countries of the world? 80. You wonder where your tax money is going to. That's 170 active duty, but if you include civilians, reservists, it goes up to 250,000. All this takes money. How many military bases, official military bases, are throughout the world? USA military bases. How many official bases, full-on publicly recognized bases? 120. How many unofficial or not full-on bases, but still there's deployment, there's weapons, there's radar, like that? Thousands. No one can count them. So you might say, well, so what? But this is where your money is going to. Those things don't cost, they're not free. In this way, the world is overburdened. I was speaking in the UK, and I was giving them, so we just don't think we're fixated on the USA. In the UK, I told them, you're so worried about the collapse of your vaunted public health care system. Because in the UK, unlike the USA, there's universal health care. Australia, New Zealand, Commonwealth countries, former Commonwealth countries have universal health care. That if you're ill, you may have zero money, but you have access to the best surgeons, the best doctors in the land. Doesn't go by income. But that's crumbling in the UK. They're not spending enough money to keep that system functioning properly. Yet, they spent 100 billion pounds more than $1, buying 11 fighter jets from the USA, fighter jets capable of dropping nuclear weapons. So you see, this is going on all over the world. Meanwhile, can't give people health care. Just so we understand the positive, I like this passage from the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagwatam describing Maharaj Gaya. Fifth canto, chapter 15, text 7. Anyone remember Maharaj Gaya? What about him do you remember?
I'm trying to remember the statement you said. I'm sure you said.
I'll read from the purport. King Gaya gave full protection and security to the citizens so that their personal property would not be disturbed by undesirable elements. He also saw that there was sufficient food to feed all the citizens. So his activities are going to be in 4 categories: Poshana, Prinana, Upalalada, and Anushasana. These are 4 cardinal points of good government. So first is Poshana, making sure the citizens are safe and making sure there's sufficient food to feed them. What more would he do? He would sometimes distribute gifts to the citizens to satisfy them. This is called Prinana. He would sometimes call meetings and satisfy the citizens with sweet words. This is called Upalalana. He would also give them good instructions how to become first-class citizens. This is called Anushasana. Such were the characteristics of King Gaya's royal order. Besides all this, King Gaya was a householder who strictly observed the rules and regulations of household life. He performed sacrifices and was an unalloyed, pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was called Mahapurush because as a king, he gave the citizens all facilities, and as a householder, he executed all his duties so that at the end he became a strict devotee of the Supreme Lord. As a devotee, he was always ready to give respect to other devotees and to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. This is the Bhakti Yoga process. Due to all these transcendental activities, King Gaia was always free from the bodily conception. He was full in Brahman realization, and consequently he was always jubilant. He did not experience material lamentation. Although he was perfect in all respects, he was not proud, nor was he anxious to rule the kingdom. So at least we should know what the standard is of a real chief executive. So Prabhupada's books are giving you what is the standard for real human existence. We don't have that in the world today, but it's liberating to know the standard. So this purport goes on to explain that this is the purpose of Krishna's descent on the surface of the earth. That the conditioned souls will be released from the material condition and return home back to Godhead. How do you do that? How do you return home back to Godhead? By understanding Krishna's activities. If one understands the purpose of Krishna's coming to this earth and performing his activities, one is immediately liberated. This liberation is the purpose of the creation and the purpose of Krishna's descent upon the surface of the earth. So then he goes on to explain how demoniac persons are very interested in advancing a plan for which people labor hard, like cats, dogs, and hogs. Work, consume, that's it. That becomes the central focus of life in a demoniac civilization. It's like when I go to China, I explained, you don't have the Hare Krishna mantra, but you do have a mantra. Anyone knows the Chinese mantra? I explain this sometimes to hundreds who've gathered. And I asked them, repeat after me. Here is the Chinese mantra. Work, buy, consume, die. And they all agree. That's it. That's us. That's all there is to life. So Prabhupada's explaining that demons are very much interested in advancing a plan by which people will work hard like animals. But Krishna's devotees want to teach Krishna consciousness so that people will be satisfied with plain living and Krishna conscious advancement. Although demons have created many plans for industry and hard labor so that people will work day and night like animals, this is not the purpose of civilization. Such endeavors are jagato hita. That is, they are meant for the misfortune of the people in general. Shayaya. Such activities lead to annihilation. One who understands the purpose of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, should seriously understand the importance of the Krishna conscious movement and seriously take part in it. So he goes on to talk about vimudhas. You know what a mudha is, right? Who doesn't know what a mudha is? It's Sanskrit for fool. But then there is vimudha. When the viz before the mudha, the viz an intensifier means super fool. And what is the goal of the super fool? Flickering happiness. It's such a poetic phrase. It captures the essence of material illusion. You can just imagine you're in a room and the light's on and someone rapidly flicks the light off and on, off and on, off and on. You just get frustrated. Either leave it on or leave it off. But flickering, on and off, on and off, on and off. It just rattles you. It just puts you on edge, fills you with anxiety. For flickering happiness, people waste their human energy, not understanding the importance of the Krishna conscious movement. So we've heard about Krishna's mercy. Next, Shukadeva Goswami informs us that Krishna and Balaram cooperatively perform activities beyond the mental comprehension of even personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. I think I read you some weeks ago about how you can look at that situation from another point of view, understanding Krishna. Does anyone remember? Did I do that? No, I won't be able to find it quickly. Where Prabhupada explains that the Mathuraites and Dwarkaites, they understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the Brijbasis don't care to understand Krishna. They just want to love Krishna. So in that instance, Prabhupada explains that a devotee actually doesn't want to understand Krishna and how he creates. A devotee simply wants to love Krishna. This is how deep bhakti is. You can look at that same point from many different angles. But here we are here we are exhorted to understand Krishna, even though Krishna is beyond the mental comprehension of even Brahma and Shiva. And the symptom of, or evidence of his beyond mental comprehension is the Battle of Kurukshetra. Have any of you had difficulty explaining the Battle of Kurukshetra to others? Say, what, this is a war. How can Krishna be promoting violence? Anyone? What did you say?
Well, I just tried to point out that it was, a just war. Basically, that the other side had usurped the kingdom.
Not only had the other side usurped the kingdom, but they terrorized the Pandavas. They tried to kill the Pandavas, burn down their house. It's arson with intent to murder. They cheated in gambling. Kshatriyas are allowed to gamble, but the unrighteous side cheated. They tried to disrobe Arjuna's wife in public, which in a human civilization is considered totally abominable. In a Kali Yuga situation, so-called civilization, you can be the wife of the president and do that on the cover of a magazine and no one thinks anything of it. So the Pandavas have a right to protect themselves from aggressors. So it wasn't like some kind of oil war or war for control of cobalt or lithium or something like that. It wasn't a resources war. And it didn't involve any civilians. They fought in a remote place. And the civilians, untouched, simply paid tribute to whoever emerges as the winner. So it wasn't a religious war, a holy war, as people might call that today. It was a war fought on the principles of Dharma, and that's why Krishna was urging Arjuna to fight. To uphold Dharma. You have to protect the innocent. You have to stand up for justice. You're a Kshatriya. You're not a civilian. It's your occupational duty to protect Dharma, to protect the innocent. That's Krishna speaking on one level. But then on another level, Krishna is saying, you have to fight because I want it. And you're my part and parcel. So at first, Arjuna is concerned with heaven and hell. So what does he tell Krishna in the first chapter? Those who destroy the family tradition, what happens? Huh? They'll dwell in hell. And then in the next chapter, chapter 2, what does Krishna say? Happy are those Kshatriyas who have a righteous fighting opportunity. They go to the heavenly planets. And then at the end of Bhagavad Gita, more or less Krishna is saying, forget this heaven, forget this hell. Just do it because I want you to do it. And Arjuna agrees. Karishye vachanam tava. I'll act according to your instruction. Never mind heaven, never mind hell. That's Bhagavad Gita. So this battle of Kurukshetra is beyond the mental comprehension of even Brahma and Shiva. Now, we're almost to the end of the 9th canto, and Shukadeva Goswami is going to point out a very extraordinary point. More extraordinary than Krishna's activities being beyond the mental comprehension of even Brahma and Shiva. Kalo janyishyamananam dukkha shoka tamo nudam anugrahaya bhaktanam supunyam vyatanod yashaha. To show causeless mercy to the devotees who would take birth in the future in this age of Kali. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, acted in such a way that simply by remembering him, one will be freed from all the lamentation and unhappiness of material existence. In other words, he acted so that all future devotees, by accepting the instructions of Krishna consciousness stated in Bhagavad Gita, could be relieved from the pangs of material existence. So, Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out that what Krishna did was not simply impacting those present 5,000 years ago for the battle of Kurukshetra and the like. What Krishna did is also impacting the future. It's impacting us today. And it's causeless mercy. Because Krishna acted in a way that by remembering what he does, we become freed from material existence. So Krishna is creating content. In the internet world, what do they say? Content is king. So the internet is loaded with all kinds of junk. And if you want to keep a lively internet presence, you always have to be adding content. But Krishna has unlimited content. And he's created content so that simply by remembering him, you can end material existence, which is full of lamentation and unhappiness. Krishna did this on purpose. So there's the past, and there's now, the present, and the future, all receiving the causeless mercy to the devotees who would take birth in the future in this age of Kali. So congratulations, you have this. Krishna did it on purpose. So Shukadeva has described the Lord's mercy to the persons present at the time of the Kurukshetra war, and he's described the Lord's mercy for persons in the future. There's an enhanced word-for-word meaning. I like to meditate on these, especially when, instead of just doing a straight word-for-word translation, Prabhupada enhances it. His ecstasies, as I said, break out even before the purport. Sometimes he power packs the translation. Sometimes he power packs the word-for-words. Literalists don't like this. How can you do that? Just translate literally, leave it at that. But this is the uniqueness and ecstasy of the Bhaktivedanta purports. When someone knows what Krishna wants, they can do this. So, for dukkha shoka tama nudam, we have the word-for-word meaning. to minimize their unlimited unhappiness and lamentation, which are caused by ignorance. It's a tough pill to swallow for us, thinking my unhappiness and lamentation is caused by ignorance. Ignorance means the lack of knowledge. It means my intelligence is covered. So now we're getting closer to the end of the 9th canto. We're getting to the point where Krishna is going to appear, and Pritchett Maharaj is going to stimulate Shukadeva Goswami even more by saying, I've heard what you've said in the 9th canto. I've heard about the dynasties of all the kings. And so Pritchett Maharaj is going to want Shukadeva to zero in on a particular dynasty. The dynasties of the 4th canto, Swayambhuva Manu, weren't so sweet, the Acharyas say, as compared to the dynasties of the 9th and 10th canto. Which dynasty do you hear about in the 9th canto? Well, what's the name of that dynasty? Another name.
Son.
Suryavamsha. So Pritchett Maharaj is going to say to Shukadeva, you've explained about the Suryavamsha and the Somavamsha, but particularly I want to hear about the Somavamsha. Why? Yes. So Pritchett Maharaj is drilling down and putting the spotlight focused more and more. I've heard about the dynasties in the 9th canto. Now, I've also heard about the Somavamsha, Suryavamsha, the dynasties of Lord Ramchandra, and then what about the dynasty of Lord Krishna? There's a side story about the Yadu dynasty. Why is the Yadu dynasty so important? Who is Yadu? Who remembers who the original Yadu is? He was the son, huh?
Son of Yayati.
Son of Yayati, one of the sons of Yayati. What happened to him?
He traded his youth for his father's old age.
No, he didn't do it. He begged off. He was the oldest. And so the father, Yayati, to get out of a jam, the father got in trouble with his father-in-law, messing around with other girls. So the father-in-law, Shukracharya, did what? Cursed him. You will become prematurely old. And what did Yayati say? I haven't, your daughter and I haven't gone through what we need to go through. It's too early for me to become old. We still have an agenda. So what did Shukracharya think? Shukracharya is a controversial character. His very name, Shukra, seminal Acharya, his qualification to be a priest is just based on inheritance. That's all. No spiritual qualification. So Shukracharya, being materialistically tinged, he's an expert in karma kanda, karmic activity, punya, papa, balancing the two. So Shukracharya is thinking, wait a minute. If I curse my son-in-law that he becomes prematurely old, that's going to disempower my daughter. I don't know if I want that to happen. So he made a deal with Yayati. You can trade your old age to someone for their youth. Now, who would make such a deal? Who would take someone's old age and give that person youth? But Shukracharya knew that if someone's a son, they'll do that for the father. So Yayati accepted that deal. Okay, I've got to trade my old age to one of my sons and take my son's youth. This is how do we say, crazed he was, maddened he was by material desire, shameless. He's going to approach his son. Give me your youth and I'll give you my invalidity and old age. What a deal. So he went to the oldest son first. And who was the oldest son? Yadu. And what did Yadu say? No thanks. But Yadu's refusal was based on dharma. Why? Sort of. But can you explain more? Yadu was thinking, if I take his old age and become an old man prematurely, I know my father at the right time will give me the youth back and take the old age from me, but this will set back my whole timetable to go through the Grihastha ashram and then renounce. I don't want to set back that time. I've got to go through what I got to go through right now, because in the future, Krishna will appear in my dynasty. So I got to get the show on the road. I got to start a dynasty for the sake of Krishna appearing. But if I take his old age now, that'll set the whole process back. It'll postpone the inevitable. I don't want to postpone the inevitable. I want to go through the Grihastha ashram and then renounce. And by my going to the Grihastha ashram, I'll start my dynasty, the dynasty that Krishna is going to appear in. But if I take my father's old age, the whole plan becomes delayed. You get it? So his refusal is glorious. It wasn't it had not the slightest trace of selfishness. So then what did Yayati do? He turned to 3 other sons. Please take my old age. Give me your youth. And what did those 3 sons tell him? No way! But their refusal was based on ignorance. We just want to enjoy. The hell with your old age. We don't want it. We got things to do. We got enjoyments in mind. Who in their right mind would take someone's old age in exchange for youth? No way. So their refusal was adharma. They didn't refuse the father for dharmic reasons. They refused him for selfish reasons. Of course, you would sympathize with him, right? What if your father asked you, please, take my old age, give me your youth? What would you do?
I would refuse. Why? Because I know my father isn't going to use his youth to serve Krishna.
That's true. But these 3 sons refused simply because we want to enjoy. We don't want anyone's old age. Keep it for yourself. So then Yayati turned to the last son, the youngest, whose name was Puru. And what did Puru say?
Yes.
But he said yes in a more eloquent way. He said, I'm so sorry that I'm not up to the standard, because there are 4 types of sons, and I wasn't up to the standard of the topmost. The first level of son anticipates what the father wants even before the father says it. That's not me. The second level son hears what the father wants and does it. No anticipation, though. The third level son does what the father wants, but does it very grudgingly. What am I going to do this? Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. And what about the fourth level? doesn't do it at all, disobedient completely. So Puru said, I'm sorry I'm not the topmost level. I should have anticipated. You shouldn't have had to ask me. So I'm second class. So in this way, this is how Yadu became so famous. He looked ahead into the future and saw that in my dynasty is going to appear the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So sorry, Father, I can't take your old age. It'll delay the whole process. So you may wonder why in Bhagwatam dynasties are so important. Because dynasties preserve Dharma. Families preserve Dharma. This is so unlike what we have today, where it's every person for himself, herself. But Bhagavatam is teaching you about a real human society in which Dharma is preserved from generation to generation. That's why Arjuna protests in chapter 1 of the Gita. Those who destroy the family tradition dwell in hell. Family tradition means Dharma. Of course, Arjuna doesn't need to give Krishna lessons in Dharma because Krishna is Dharma personified. Still, there was value to what Arjuna was saying. So you can be sure that no one can come up with any better excuses not to do what Krishna wants than what Arjuna came up with. Still, what did Krishna say? You're speaking big words, but what? You don't know what you're talking about. All right, any questions? So I hope now you understand why the Yadu dynasty, how the significance of the Yadu dynasty began. It began with the son of Yayati named Yadu. Yes.
You were talking about like the plan-making factory.
Yes.
We make all these plans. So we come to Bhakti and decide, okay, no more material sense gratification, but the factories.
Do we decide that?
We try to. And then you find out that a lot of the factories produced a whole lot of desires, and a lot of them have been meditated on pretty deeply. So how do we, for those desires that have matured, ignore them and continue to, ignore them until they burn away? Or for the ones that are really mature, where you're acting on them against your will, power through them in a way you don't get too derailed?
We're all individuals, and we have our different desires for speed of spiritual advancement. There's room for everyone. I often give the example of the classroom. I've probably asked some of you before. In the classroom, generally speaking, they're the eager students in the front row, right up where the teacher is. Teacher says jump. Those students say how high. How many of you were those kind of students? Raise your hand. And then in the back of the classroom, you have the guys fooling around, the guys and girls fooling around. How many of you were in the back of the classroom? You were? Playing around, looking at your phone. We used to throw spitballs, roll up a little tiny bit of paper, put it in your mouth, and throw it at someone else. Did you do that, Rajalila Devi? So the poor teacher's up at the front of the room trying to teach the whole classroom. We've got probably 30 kids in the classroom. Then the eager ones are up front, just lapping it all up. The naughty ones are in the back of the classroom, not even paying attention to what the teacher's doing. And then in the middle, they can go either way. How many of you were in the middle? Yes. So in Bhakti, it's like that also. You have those who are very eager, at a certain point in time at least. Some maintain that eagerness throughout the duration. Then you have those in the back of the classroom. Yeah, well, you know. Yeah, but. Yeah, well. And then those in the middle, they go back and forth. So, some or other, Bhakti is like a one-room school. I went to a one-room school for the first 3 grades, Lutheran school in New York, in Queens Village, although I was living in Springfield Gardens. Living in Springfield Gardens and not knowing nearby was Vraja Leela Devi. So, one-room school means the teacher has to be very expert to bring along properly and not lose the enthusiasm of all the students. In one room there was 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. In another room it was 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The teacher was very expert at how to keep the appetite stimulated of each type of student, of each grade. So we need to be that in bhakti if we're going to help others. We can't just insist that everyone surrenders overnight. What's the name of that devotee? He met Prabhupada in 65, 66 and didn't become a devotee till in the 80s, 20 years or more later. He's a sannyasi now. He told me himself, he used to, in the first days of 2nd Avenue in 66, he used to come to the temple, and Prabhupada knew him. And he walked in one day in the middle of Bhagavad Gita class on 26 2nd Avenue, and Prabhupada just took one look at him and said, "So-and-so," I forgot his name, "are you on LSD?" In the middle of the Bhagavad Gita class. And he said, and the person said, "No." But he said, "Actually, I wasn't but I wasn't lying, because I had taken the LSD the day before. So I hadn't taken it that day, so therefore I was speaking the truth. I hadn't taken LSD that day. But I was still reeling from the effects of my taking it yesterday. But I didn't tell that to Prabhupada." So this is what Prabhupada had to deal with. Can you imagine giving a Bhagwatam class and someone walks in and you have to ask, "Have you taken LSD?" That person disappeared and didn't show up until 25 years later. Now he's a sannyasi. I was telling in Mayapur how one of my sannyasi godbrothers, I'll say his name, is Naranjan Maharaj, when he was working as a carpenter, young man with a group of construction workers. They were doing a job in Boston, and all of a sudden a chanting party comes by, and they all just shouted profanities at the chanting party, just hurled obscenities. Of course, I myself, when I saw devotees on television on the David Susskind show. How many of you seen the David Susskind show? It's on YouTube. You've seen it? Yeah, it's there on YouTube. That was a big deal back then because it was nationwide, and David Susskind was a famous newscaster back when newscasters were very famous. Remember those days? Tom Brokaw, Dan, what is his name? Rather. Yeah, they were like devotees. So the David Susskind show was a big deal, nationwide, prime time. I happened to see the rerun in May of '72, and my reaction was very favorable, right? Oh yes, it's just what I want. No, I made remarks I'm ashamed of. I said, these people are fools. They missed the goal of life. They talk about Ananda. I learned the word quickly because that was the big preaching back then. Stay high forever. Ananda, Ananda, bliss. So I learned that word immediately. I turned to my roommate and said, they talk about Ananda. We'll invite them to one of our parties. We'll show them what Ananda is. 8 months later, I was in the Brahmacharya ashram. So you don't know who you're dealing with often immediately. We need to give everyone a chance to grow in bhakti. There'll be the fast-trained persons, there'll be the slow-trained persons, there'll be the medium-trained. Trying to think of one example that just was on the tip of my tongue. Devotees asked Prabhupada, why don't you do like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did to Chota Haridas? Ignored him. Eventually, Chota Haridas jumped into the Ganga, finished himself. So devotees asked Prabhupada, well, should we do like that? Should we banish devotees? Should they make such a mistake as Chota Haridas? Of course, his so-called mistake was, this is Leela for Chota Haridas, it was very slight. But devotees were asking about devotees who fall down, especially in the renounced order. Should they be banished? Should they commit suicide? Just like Lord Chaitanya seemed to have approved for what Chota Haridas did. Prabhupada's response was, I'm not Lord Chaitanya. I need all the help I can get. We should keep that in mind. Yes.
Firstly, thank you for your kind encouragement. Thank you. Secondly, this is a back and forth question. So, what I'm taking away is the Lord appeared to give his mercy. And that mercy comes by remembering the Lord. In the beginning you spoke about material nature, and we know that material nature affects us through the modes. And so the living entity is conditioned by the modes of nature. And so ignorance and passion and goodness, before we can really become transcendental. So my question is, it appears that even devotees are affected by the modes of material nature. Even exalted modes can be affected by the modes. So how do we just remember Krishna and become, get the mercy?
Where do the modes of nature come from?
Okay, so modes of nature come definitely from Krishna. So do we simultaneously remember, Krishna, I'm remembering you, but right now the whispers of the mode of goodness, or the mode of passion, or mode of ignorance is coming. So Krishna, is that the answer? Is that what you do?
Remembering Krishna means remembering Krishna's solution to the attack of the modes of nature. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you can cross over all obstacles by his grace, by acting according to his instructions and remembering him. That muscle in you, so-called muscle, builds and builds over the years. It seems so insignificant and so inconsequential. Oh, the modes of nature are attacking me. This is coming from Krishna. What is Krishna's solution to this problem? It seems to be a drop in the bucket. It seems to be so inconsequential. But Krishna in the heart is watching for that. It's a monumental beginning, although we think it's so tiny and insignificant and inconsequential. Yeah, mode of passion is pushing me around. But if we remember Krishna's solution, that's a monumental event. And gradually, such choice potencies increase and increase and increase. But there's so much discouragement in the beginning. Oh, this is not going to work for you. It works for others, but not for you. Who do you think you are? Trying to be some kind of saint? Give up now. Avoid the rush and peak time traffic. It can be tough. But if you strive to remember Krishna's instruction and apply those instructions, gradually you start making firm progress. So we were discussing yesterday that every devotee needs a personal victory, a victory brought about by chanting your way out of a problem. You'll never forget that. Just get on the scoreboard one time. One victory that I was in a jam, pinned to the wall by, as you say, the modes of material nature, and I chanted my way out of it. That's the beginning of freedom. But every devotee needs his or her own personal victory. Then you start becoming strong. So I was talking yesterday about a famous CEO back in the 70s when General Electric was a big deal in the USA. He was Jack Welch, CEO, legendary CEO. He said, when it comes to interviewing managemental appointments, he said, I don't accept anyone for an interview unless they've had a near-death experience, meaning they had some enterprise they were doing and it almost failed. I want those kind of persons because they've got realization. So I always remembered that. Devotees who have been through tough times and emerged somehow or other, they have such valuable wisdom to offer. So it's not just the Kijai Bliss boys who have something to offer. Those who have battled with adversity, just like the athletes. If you were into sports, I used to be into sports. The athletes always say, "Got to triumph over adversity." And they always present their dramas. I was torn Achilles tendon, thought my career was over. I pushed and I worked out and I struggled and strained, triumphed over the adversity. So they're glorified for that. Similarly, our devotees who've gone through adversity, they have so much to offer.
Sometimes when devotees go through adversity, they develop more hard-hearted. They become more hard-hearted.
Yes.
So my question to this is, your answer, which I'm absolutely appreciating and accepting. However, not however, because that'll mean I'm saying something else. But I was just thinking in terms of what you just said, that the adversity will help the whispers of the modes of material nature to become less, for some, but not always.
But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you become conscious of him, so we're always trying to be more conscious of Krishna. It's not that adversity in of itself automatically makes someone stronger. It's their response to the adversity. And that strength of response may not appear right away. So we have to be very careful in dealing with devotees. someone who's having a tough time now, just like this devotee back in Second Avenue days. Just couldn't get it together. Staggered in the middle of a Bhagavad Gita class, and Prabhupada had to ask him, "Are you on LSD?" Now he's wonderfully situated. 25 years later, he showed up again. So this Krishna Conscious Society is for all types of candidates. The fast train ones, slow boats, and the medium pace ones. We have to learn how to deal with all those types, and it's not easy. That means we have to become very big-hearted. It's a very delicate balancing act, how to keep the purity and the focus on Krishna's pleasure, while at the same time being inclusive. It takes a lot of maturity. Yes.
You're talking about Yadu's desire to not delay Krishna's coming.
Yes.
But we also understand that Krishna comes according to his will. And even in the first canto, there's a chapter named Scheduled Incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that Krishna seems to keep to at least some sort of timetable.
But he doesn't have to.
So it's
That's
not-
his mercy. Here's the schedule, but he doesn't have to do that.
Right. So was Yadu's decision actually like impacting when Krishna comes?
That's his bhakti. He's feeling that way. I want to aid the Lord's appearance, not hinder it. Of course, Krishna's independent, but still Yadu, that's his bhakti. If I delay my household life, I'll slow down the whole process of the Lord's appearance, who's going to appear way in the future in my dynasty. So that's his bhakti. Krishna's not dependent on Yadu's decision. But Yadu is glorified for thinking like that.
If Yadu had made the opposite choice, would Krishna have appeared later, or would he have found a way to...
You ask Krishna. He's being a theoretical physicist now. Last question. All right. But you already asked a question? Yes.
You were saying that it takes a lot of guts for someone to put themselves underneath a microscope and examine what's going on
Yes.
in the heart. So I was wondering, the process of bhakti is kind of like we're opening up the heart and seeing what's there.
Maybe.
If we're wanting that. So how do we deal with what we find in our heart when we see that it's not so pleasant?
Seeing the enemy is half the way to victory. We're grateful that we can see that there's something in the dark lagoon of our heart that's embarrassing. That Krishna says, out of compassion, I in your heart will turn on the lamp of knowledge so you can see all these things. Tesham avanukampartam aham agena jamtama. So that's wonderful that you can see. Otherwise, before we didn't see. We thought we were great. And then by Krishna's grace you see, and then you can start doing something about it. But before you didn't see. You were acting in ignorance. Yes, okay, last one.
I had a question, kind of this, you touched on it today and also yesterday where you were talking about chanting our way through difficult situations and how that brings victory. And I was just wondering, my question was, how can we develop just a deeper trust and faith in Krishna as he's working through our lives, regardless of what comes, just how can we develop more faith in Krishna?
By applying Krishna's instructions. And as emphasized in the purports we're reading at the end of the 9th canto, chanting Hare Krishna, as simple as that, can bring you through. And once you have that experience, that is a huge victory, personal victory. When you can be knocked to the ground and pick yourself up by the grace of the Hare Krishna mantra. You never forget that. Every devotee, as I often say, needs his or her own personal victory gained by chanting Hare Krishna. You have your near-death experience. And you chant your way out of it. In spite of the discouragement at first, this is not going to work. Who do I think I am? I'm no saint. This only works for the advanced devotees. It works for so-and-so, but he or she is a mystic yogi. We make excuses like that. Little old me, it's not going to work. I'm nothing special. Every devotee is precious, and every devotee has that opportunity to chant your way out of a situation. Is this a short one? All right.
I just want to follow up on that piece that we've been talking about, chanting our way, our problem. I want to ask you, what is the mood that we when we try to chant our way of our problem? Like, I imagine, probably during chanting, the mind's making crazy things and hard to focus. So, should we just focus on hearing the mantra?
Of course. That's always the case. Chanting is about hearing. It's not about thinking. Reminds me of one example. You wouldn't know it because they don't play baseball in Vietnam, right? But it's an example of a famous baseball player. Radha Swami and I, we would share this example. How many of you heard of Willie Mays? So he was asked by a reporter very sincerely, what do you think of when you're in the batter's box? You're facing a pitcher and the ball is coming. What did Willie Mays say? Think? I don't think. I see the ball and I hit it. That's how we want to chant. He was genuinely baffled. Think? I just see the ball and I hit it. That's how we should chant. The tongue vibrates and the ear hears it. Gradually the sound penetrates the heart. One day the head will spin. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki.